let's create some questions together. So we made an appointment. So I'm sitting in the lobby waiting for him to come. And there's glass doors, and I can watch him. He pulls up, he gets out of his car, he slams the car door, he goes marching into the building, throws the doors open, he goes through the lobby, doesn't even see me, walks down into his office and slams the door shut. Okay, and so, I went, I knocked on his door. Come in. I said, do you have any idea of how you entered this building? And he says, well, I have a reason to be, really focused. Yeah, there's that rationalization. People need to understand. I said, but you're asking me why people are afraid. They're afraid of you. Do you want to shift what's going on here? You've got to start with you first. What happens when you enter the room? To be aware of the impact that you have. And the bigger question is, what happens when you leave the room? Do they go, yay? Or do they feel inspired, enabled, and encouraged? So you need to know, what is the impact that I have on people by my feelings? And again, you're busy. I know you are. And that's part of the problem, because you get really busy and I got a lot of things to do. And those emotions are impacting people. So then they're busy and they're scared and they got a lot of things to do. And then we have this level of anxiety that goes on in the workplace. So remember that it starts with the two basic emotions. So the first step in self-awareness is to identify anger and fear. But we all have a dominant reaction. So some of you are fighters, and you tend to react that way. Pam, I bet you are. And some of you are flighters, just shut down, not going to bother, not going to say anything right now. We all do both. But it's good to know you're dominant, because that's the emotion you're going to pick up the quickest. So I'm a fighter, so it's good for me to know exactly where my anger is, because that's the thing that's going to tend to show up that I got to breathe and let go. So who are my fighters? Thank you for admitting for that. Okay, so if you would just yell out, where do you feel anger? Just name the place in your body. Do you know? Where do you feel it? Okay, you feel it in your shoulders. Where else? Stomach. Yeah, I'm a punch in the stomach person. Where else? Jaw. Some of you. So I want you to hear this. I cannot tell you where you feel your emotions, because it's different for different people. So I can't go down a list. You have to notice yourself. So again, I told you, I know that when I feel that, I know what that is. And I can stop and say, do you want to be angry or not? And then, what's really what happened here? Why are you angry? And is this something you want to act on or not? That's my first, is anger. So we're going to go through a couple of these, but on page 4, I want you to start thinking about it. For some of you, it's going to be difficult because you can't call it up right now. But this is why I want you to continue to be aware and start noticing. So flighters, if you're willing to say it out loud, where do you feel fear? Okay, so for a lot of things shut down. What else? You're breathing. Where else? Where else do you feel fear? Come on, fighters. Your what gets stuck? Your feet get stuck. Okay, see? I told you that one woman felt anger in her ears. She feels fear in her feet. So, I can't tell you. Some people feel fear in their shoulders. Some people feel fear in their stomach. Butterflies. So again, I can't tell you. You have to say, where is it that I feel it? And if you don't know, please take this with you, and the next time that you go through a little bit of fear and anxiety, write it down. And know that most of the time it's not big fear and it's not big anger. Most of the time it's little. It was Van Gogh who said it's the little emotions who are the captains of our lives. And it's true. It's the little emotions. The big emotions we notice, but the little emotions, the little, I don't want to make that phone call right now. And you have a good rationalization for why not. Or I don't want to have that conversation. or I have a right to be angry with you. You know, but it's those little things that we have to start noticing, that anger, that fear. So write it down where you think, and if you don't know, that's okay. But make the intention of paying attention to it, because the quicker I can catch it in my body, the more chance I have to shift it. And they say if you can actually catch it and shift your emotions in 6 seconds, which, you know, 1001, 1002, it's a while, that you could actually change your chemistry. And your neurological chemicals will stop the adrenaline. After 6 seconds, you tend to flood, and it's a little bit harder. So the quicker you can notice in your body, the better off you are in being able to manage what's going on and to make that shift. Okay, so I want you to write it down. Where do you feel fear? Where do you feel anger? Then you, remember I said, then you go into, and that's right, there's some questions there too that you can ask yourself once you feel these things, you know, well, to say what's the worst that can happen here really? Is this really likely to happen? You know, we can coach ourselves a little bit. You know, there's a lot of research that says it's really difficult to override that protective mechanism in your ego. It's really better if somebody disrupts your own thinking by asking you the questions. So it's really good to have somebody else ask you these questions, so let them do that. So when I say to you, so really what's the worst that's going to happen, it's going to have more of an impact than if you ask yourself. Because your rationalization mechanism will come up. And it's weird. We just don't tell the truth as much to ourselves as we do to someone else. So how do you know this to be true? What else is possible that's going on right now? What's in your control to do? One of the things I learned in managing organizational change is the question I would often ask my team is, so what's going on right now? What's the decision that was made? What's in our control right now, starting with ourselves? What's not in our control? Or maybe influence? And what is it we need to let go of so we can move on? And what's it going to take? You know, and just to have the conversation. You know, so these are good questions for you to ask people when you notice the fear and the anger. You know, again, don't judge the fear and the anger. You just help them kind of work through it. But then we slam into the social emotions and that ego, that sense of self, who I am, who I think I am in this world, and how I see the world around me. Okay, and that's where we're going to work. In just a moment, we're going to work on triggers. But these are the social emotions, are that frustration, that disappointment, that embarrassment. We have expectations of what we thought would happen and how people would treat us. And if our expectations aren't met, we have reactions. Okay, and so if we know, where do you feel frustrated? Where do you feel disappointed? Where do you feel embarrassed? I feel embarrassed way down here. And oftentimes I'm disappointed, I feel it in my heart. And can ask myself, what was it that I expected to happen that I didn't get? You know, and betrayal, you know, that's an interesting one. A friend of mine wrote a book called Trust and Betrayal in the Workplace. Him and his wife wrote it. And he said, you know, but we often think we were made promises, and then we get upset when the promises aren't kept. And a lot of people feel betrayed. And that's a lot of the emotion that's going on in the workplace. And so to again, with compassion, to ask, what were you expecting? What did you think that someone told you would happen? And let people talk about it. It's important to put this out on the table so we can move forward. This is not therapy, and that's a question people often say, isn't this like therapy? You know, and the distinction, what I love in coaching is about what's happening now and what's it going to take to move forward. Therapy is like, well, what happened in the past that created this pattern that keeps showing up? You know, that's okay to look at, but I'm not as interested in what happened back there. I want to know what's happening with you now. And what's it going to take? What's going to take for you to be willing? What is it you need? And sometimes people just need to be listened to be heard, to be valued in the moment. You know, we're yearning for that. So knowing where you feel these things will help you then to identify them, and then you can ask yourself why. So I want to give you just a minute to fill out what you think, where you feel these emotions. And then when you're done, I just want you to notice, I'd like you to share them with another person and just notice if they feel emotions in a different place. And if you don't know where you feel one of these things, maybe hearing it from someone else will help you identify it. So it's just, again, just to start noticing where you feel specific emotions. So take a moment, fill it out, and then turn to a partner or two, depending on how you're arranged, and share. Okay, wrap up your conversation. Okay, good job. So you see, we do feel things in different places. Now, some of you will have more ability to notice, and some of you might say, I'm just not really sure, and some of you might say, I don't feel that much. I had this one guy in one of my classes, he said, I don't really have any emotions. I just let things roll off my back. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Have you been trained to do that? And he says, no, that's just how I am. I said, so let me ask you a few questions. I had heard him talking about his son played soccer. I said, when was the last time that your son did something playing soccer that you were so happy you jumped up for joy? He said, can't remember. I said, well, when was the last time that you were playing with your kids, you were rolling around on the floor and just laughing so hard it hurt? He said, okay, now I know why I'm doing this. I know that it's been trained out of us, I grew up with that too, and especially I worked in companies that were male-dominated and I had to shut my heart down, wasn't going to let them see it. But again, it's that piece of who we are, and we grow up just systematically shutting it down, that piece of us, that humanity, and just to notice, even if it's a little thing, just to notice, I'm having an emotion. It's so critical to be able, again, not just for yourself to experience this life, but to enable other people to express to you what it is that they're feeling in the moment and feel safe, and for you to be able to allow them to move through it, to move on. So we start here. We start with awareness of what's happening. But again, it's not enough just to say, oh, look, I'm having an emotion. Isn't that fascinating? Good at that. But to know why is really what creates the intelligence part of this. What do I do with this in order to understand it and then to make the choices. So if you know what's triggering your emotion, then it opens the door to new possibilities. That's really resilience. How can I choose to see something else, to do something else? I have to fully understand what created the emotion in the first place. And we've been dealing with this for a very, very long time. I love this quote, anyone can become angry, that's easy, but to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, with the right purpose, the right way, not so easy. Does anyone recognize this quote? Yeah, we've been dealing with this for a very long time. Right. Because emotions are human, we don't just make them go away. They're a piece of who we are. They're built into our structure. So we're going to look at emotional triggers, but before I show you the list and talk about it, I want you to know that these are important. So when I talk to you about your ego is your sense of self and how you see the world, you did develop this over time. And the things that are important to you, that helped you to be the success you are right now in your life, is what you dearly protect. And so if you're a smart person, if your brain perceives that somebody may be challenging what you know, you might react. I'm sure you've seen that in meetings where one person says something, the other one starts arguing, they're saying the same thing. But it's not the information, it's that the one person said it in the way that the other person felt that it was a challenge to what they knew, and they're protecting, I'm a smart person, that's all. Okay, so whatever helped you to be the success you are right now, you're going to protect. So for some of you, it could be smarts, it could be, how well you deal with people, that you're that person that really brings people together. And if you're that type of person, if someone doesn't like you, that might bother you. and you worry about what people think. So when we look at the triggers, again, just like emotions aren't bad, triggers aren't bad. They helped you to be who you are. So we're not going to make them go away. We just want to understand them and say, oh, look, there it is, my trigger. Is it true that they're challenging what's important to me, or is, it's just what they do and it's no big deal. When you understand that, then you know what to do next. If they are challenging me, then you may want to ask for what you need. So if somebody continually interrupts me before I finish, what often happened when I worked in these companies is a very, that unconscious bias thing where the one woman in the room may be interrupted more than the men. It happens. And so I learned to say, when you continually interrupt me, it makes me feel like you think my ideas are stupid. Is that true? And if it's not, I really like you to let me to finish my idea before you interrupt me. It just brings attention to the situation. I ask for what I need. Or if I feel, well, this is crazy, they don't, I did get my point out, and they're just saying something different, and I need to accept a different opinion, then I can let it go. So I have choice once I understand, what triggered me. Was it real? Was it not real? Should I ask for what I need, or can I let it go? That's what it gives me. That's the intelligence piece. So you also have, again, different people in the room, different triggers. So these, and I change this list periodically, and so you might see sometimes in my book or something a word or two that's changed. I don't know, this isn't the ultimate list. And there's probably other triggers. People often come up to me and say, well, what about this? And I say, oh, that's a great trigger. It's just not on my list. So you might come up with another one. Some of these are related to each other. People ask me the difference between independence and freedom. But I could have freedom to do something, but I'm not really working autonomously. And it could be the other way around. So there's nuance, there's slight differences. Some of these are related to values, and so they're really embedded in you. And some of them change over time as we age. What's important to me, what was really important to me like 10, 20 years ago, I just don't get triggered by it anymore. Yay for that, I have other triggers. They always seem to be there. It's funny, though, how they show up. So I was coaching in China, and I was an HR director, and he was about to retire. And he was trying to determine whether he wanted to be a coach. So I teach at a coaching school there. And I asked him, I said, so what's most important to you in your job right now? He said, oh, I love seeing people realize their potential and really rise up and do more than they thought they could. I'm thinking, that's really good. And then he said, and I love instilling the principles of communism. I could feel my whole body going wing, 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 wing. I took that breath, I let it go, because it's like, it's not my business to tell him what to believe, especially not in this scenario. I'm coaching this, man who really cares about people. Get over it. Let it go, come back and be present and help him make his decision. So being able to recognize I'm having a reaction, that's fascinating. Do I need to do something, or can I let it go in this moment? The quicker I can do that, the more I can be present, with you and really determine what it is you need in this moment. So you've been listening to me for a while now. So looking at this list, what do you think some of my triggers are? And go ahead, you can throw it out, I don't care. Oh, yes! What made you think that? I have no idea. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about control. So yes, control is helped me to be the success I am. Every company I worked for, I saw what needed to be fixed, to be changed. I stepped in, I took control, I was promoted fairly quickly. When I started my own business, I took control, I created an international business fairly short time. It serves me. Okay, but those times, when somebody's like, in a meeting and they're kind of taking over, I might have a reaction. So I was on the board of, actually it was Scottsdale Behavioral Health in outside of Phoenix, and I ran their personnel committee. And there was a woman on my committee named Heather. And Heather had this habit, every time I gave my committee report, she would interrupt me and start giving my report. I'd have a reaction. And then I would do what I would normally do. I'd make her wrong. Well, Heather, you weren't at all the meetings, so you don't really know what went on, right? So this would go on every time. And then one time I said, I was actually doing this work, and I'm like, what's really happening here? What is she taking from me? Well, is it credibility? Well, no. Yeah, you're right. I like credibility. But it's not, I think I have that. And it's not, everyone knows why I run this personnel committee. They wouldn't question that. And I went through the list, and then I realized, oh, I'm thinking she's trying to take control from me. Well, that's an interesting thing. It's like, well, nobody really listens to the committee reports anyway. So why would I be reacting like that? How silly. And what is it she needed? Attention, thank you. Once I got over myself, I could see what she needed. So the next time before the committee meeting, I went to her, I said, Heather, why don't you give the committee report, and I'll just fill in what you might miss at the end. And she was like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. So you see, once we understand ourselves, and we decide what we need to do, then we're open to hearing, and understanding what is it they really need. So yeah, control's a big thing. I kind of like it. So I think I'll hold on to that one for a while. What else do you see? I love new challenges. Yeah, I get bored really easy. That's why I kind of like, okay, went from this company to this company, and then I do my own thing. So yeah, I get, that's true. What else? It's really interesting. Achievement, credibility, a lot of those things were far more important to me young in my, I want to say, I don't like this getting old thing. Couple of years ago, thank you. I do, but it's not as much as a driver, and maybe as people just don't get in my way as much, so I don't know. I don't know. But there is a big one. I'm standing on the stage, so what else do I like that Heather liked? Attention. I love attention. It's helped me to be the success I am. But I go to a networking meeting or, something where there's a lot of people I don't know that much, and I walk in and people don't give me attention, and my first reaction is, oh, this is stupid. I think I'll go home and watch TV, And if I can catch myself, I can say, well, yeah, stop it. Go find someone who'll give you attention. So, you can ask for what you need or go get your need met. So I know I have that need, I can go get it met. But sometimes you need to ask for what you need. So I do have a little bit of feeling valued, recognized, appreciated for the work I do. And let me tell you one thing, high achievers don't work in a vacuum. Even if they're introverts, they want to be acknowledged for the contribution. And sometimes we focus more on the problems than we do the people we count on. But they need to hear that from you. Thank you. And to acknowledge what they've done. Even if they say, no, big deal. They may not want public recognition, but they need to be acknowledged. So one time I was creating a proposal to create a big learning center. They had given me a budget, and I was supposed to take the proposal and the budget to the CEO. But instead of going to the CEO, I went to my boss first. Okay, so he takes it and he flips through, he goes to the last page where the budget was, he points to an item and says, you can't ask for that. And what do you think I did? Yeah, remembering I'm a fighter. Yes, I can. And so we got in this little argument about this, and finally I said, you know what? Time out. I'll go look at that item, and I'll figure it out if that's right or not. But I came to you and I handed you my proposal, and you didn't give me any feedback. And he says to me, you always do a good job. Do I have to tell you? Yeah. Opportunity to ask for what I needed. I said, yes, I need to hear that from you now and again. You know what he says to me? You never tell me when I do a good job. I forgot to manage up. And so, it was weird. For the next week or two, we awkwardly acknowledged each other. But after a couple of weeks, it got more natural, and so it was okay. And so you have choices. And so, yeah, I know. And I have no problem saying I need recognition, I need attention, I need control. It's okay because it's my strengths. It's okay. And the quicker that I can name it and claim it, the quicker I have power over it and know what to do next. So it's really important that you know for you. And again, your triggers may be completely different than mine. I have had a few marriages, and it seems that our triggers were really different. I was with a surgeon for a number of years that had predictability, cleanliness, order, and he thought I was a slob. We're still good friends. But I really didn't have this of knowing how to work together and be a partner even when we had different needs and triggers. I do now, and I'm really grateful for it. So in my current relationship, it helps. So what I'd like you to do is I would like you to circle your top three. Circle your top three triggers. So take a moment, and then I want you to share at your table when everyone's done what you think, just your three. Just your three triggers. If you've got a big table of like 6 people, break into groups of 3 or 4. Okay, because we don't have a lot of time. So first, choose your 3. So let your partners choose their top 3. If you're saying, I don't know, I have them all, choose what 3 you think really trigger you. Oh, is that my money? Thank you. Did I earn my keep? Thank you so much.
Just don't want to forget. So
Yeah. You know, I'm going to stick it in my purse so I don't lose it.
I chose 4.
Tough ones to get. Yeah.
Sort of an indirect.
all right. So Anna, for your
Same as
So-
these two are the same. I couldn't talk to either one of them.
Oh. That's not nice. When we end this exercise, I'm going to ask for some people to stand up and share their triggers. So okay, great.
no, you're fine.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. Okay, wrap up your conversation. Thank you. Okay, let's bring your attention back to me. I love attention. Okay, so I can tell that you don't mind talking about it to each other. But I'm looking for a few people who would be willing to share. Because again, if you stand up and say, and now I have a need for attention, recognition, and control. I do then have power over it. And I can deal with it better. So I want to give you the opportunity. So who would be willing to stand up, breathe, and share your top 3 triggers? Thank you. We have 2 right here. Here comes your...
You ready to catch? You want to go first?
Okay. Let's breathe. Okay, so my 3 are accuracy, new challenges, and control.
Now there's an interesting combination. So the new challenges could conflict a little bit with the control. Yeah.
Definitely, but it's always process improving,
Yeah.
making things more accurate.
Excellent. Okay, so I always have to work with somebody who has a trigger for accuracy because I don't, and I make little mistakes. So you and I would be good partners. Okay, so you get a brain. I'm going to toss this to you. I don't know if I'm going to be anywhere near you, so
Matt
please.
Hedge.
Yeah. Okay.
There I go.
That was close.
If I hit David, don't worry about it.
See, I didn't bother tossing them at that.
Okay, so mine are recognition, freedom, and control.
Oh, you have a control thing too.
I have control. Too.
Excellent. Here's your brain.
Oh,
Woo! But this is really important because I wanted you to hear they had one similar, but the other 2 were different. So it's really important when we deal with people is to know that the people with you are going to have different needs, different things that trigger them than you do. And so, and they're not wrong for that. So you can't tell somebody, oh, don't let that bother you. It does. And so just recognizing, oh, I see that's really important to you. How are we going to get this met? Or is this something maybe it's not going to happen this time? What do we need to do? To acknowledge that, and to really listening and trying to understand what it is that's important to other people. So it's good for us to claim it. Thank you for standing up and claiming your triggers. And then it allows you to open up and really listen to other people. So really when we're looking at self-awareness, it really is the capacity to stand back, to be able to look at ourselves, to see our thinking, our intentions, our behaviors, and the effect that they have on people. So we make choices for ourselves and we look at the effect. And hopefully you get to laugh at yourself. Look, there I'm doing it again. It's a funny thing. But it really helps in our conversation. So my current partner, Carl, and I, we were rushing to the airport to get the rental car turned back in. Our flight had been canceled. We had to drive to the Denver airport. We had to get there really quickly. So we were already a little stressed. So we got to the gas station, and he was going to pump the gas, and I was going to pay with a credit card. So I went over, I put in the credit card. It didn't work. So I did it again. Didn't work. Did it again. Didn't work. I did what I would normally do. Work, stupid machine, work! Well, now, what I didn't tell you about Carl is a personal trainer, and before that he was an occupational therapist. He really likes to help people, and that's important to him. So he sees me in distress. He jumps over the pump, he comes over and he says to me, if you try it a little bit more slowly. Really? What do you think, I'm an idiot? And so yeah. So I bit his head off. I know how to do this. And I went in and found out the computer was down. But he told me where to go, where to go, yeah. Where the other gas station was, just down the street. I got in the car, and as we're going to the other gas station, I turned to Carl and I said, I'm sorry. I know I bit your head off in that moment, but I have this thing that when people give me really simple instructions that I probably know anyway, that I kind of react. I'm working on it, but I don't know if I'm going to change it in this lifetime. He says to me, I understand. I have this thing. He says, when I see people in need, I can't help myself. I know they don't always want me to help them, but it's what I do. He says, you know what, I'll work on it, but I don't know that I'm going to change it in this lifetime. So we laughed at it, and we came to understand each other a little bit more, that it is going to be times that we collide. Our triggers just kind of don't match up in the moment, but we understand each other better, and maybe we can get out of each other's way a little bit, or at least when that happens, that we understand what each other needs. It's important in all of our relationships, whether it's at home, or at work, to understand that, and that a lot, when they talk about diversity, it is important we have different people and different ways of thinking, which also means that different people are going to have different triggers, and we want that. We complement each other, and that's how we create great teams and have good teamwork. So you don't want a team where everybody's the same. I had this one, it was an engineering department, and he hired a bunch of new engineers, and they came to a team building class I was teaching, and they were all all the same. And they were, rah, rah, we're going to do this. And then we played this game, and they lost, and they got really angry. We should win, this is a stupid game, And they kept yelling at me. I got triggered, and I said, oh, you're just a bunch of sore losers. And then they practically jumped at me, But I went back to him. I said, what were you thinking when you hired this whole team of guys that were just the same? He says, yeah, they were just like me, and I thought that would be great because I've done really well. And I said, there's a problem here. And really what happened it was less than 2 months before we had to break that team up and put them in other areas, because they were great when they all agreed, but when they didn't agree, it was awful. And they need a diversity of thought and style and different ways of looking at things to get the best results. And so that's really important, but it's important that we know how to deal with those things because we are going to trigger each other. You know, so how can we live together knowing that we have these different needs, you know, is really important. So the first step is to truly understand why. What is it that is causing me to feel this way? So I understand my anger, my irritation, my frustration, but ask the question, why? What is it that I'm not getting that I expected to get? Or what is it I'm afraid I'm not going to get? And then I go back to my list. And again, the list can change, you know, slightly alter over time. Some of you I know had a hard time picking 3. That's okay. But work on these one at a time. So for the next couple weeks, in fact, you know, one of the, I'll get to that in a second, and the assignment we're giving you is to be able to, for the next few weeks, to stop and say, what is it that I'm feeling? But also ask, and why? So we start to understand ourselves. And if you do this, if you set your alarm, your phone, your computer, to stop periodically throughout the day and just notice, what am I feeling and why? That you start to create a habit. You actually expand the transmitters that connect, and you create a habit of awareness. So it's not just being aware, but understanding why. So we need to develop this as a habit, to create this new habit. It's hard to get rid of old habits, but we can create new ones. So I'll come back to that assignment in just a little bit. But it was Edwin O. Wilson who said we can either be the victim of our biological reactions or the masters of our destiny with our biological knowledge. And that's what emotional intelligence is, because it happens in the body first, you know, and then we think. And so can you think about what just happened and make your choices? So when we look at choice, of knowing in that moment, in the heat of the moment, that I have choice. And a lot of people say to me, yeah, this is great when I'm not really wrapped up in this already. But I want you to know that it's really not that difficult to shift your emotion. So I think we have time, yeah. So we're going to play a really quick game. And I'm going to show you how to play it. And you're going to play it with one person. So you have to have a partner. You can't do this in 3s. So when I break you up, if you're an odd person, raise your hand. Yes. And we'll find you an odd person to play with. Even odder. Okay, so in when we look at choosing, seeing the options, so if I know this is my trigger, then the questions are really how I want to feel. So if you can shift your emotions, you'll have a greater capacity then to make the choice, do I ask for what I need or do I let it go? Sometimes this is a hard thing to do. Again, I told you after 6 seconds you flood with emotions, and so it's a little bit more difficult to make the right choice. So sometimes you need to shift your emotions first. Can I shift to feeling calm, to feeling gratitude, to thinking I'm funny? Can I do that? If you do that, you have more capacity to make the right choice of whether you should ask for what you need or to let it go. So in your book, on page, you can't, well, it's really 6. You can't really see the 6. So you'll find the 7 and then know it's the page before. That you have this list of emotions. You're also going to get an attachment that Keith's going to send you that will have this list again. And again, I'm sure there's more emotions than this, but this is the list I work with. This will help you when you first start trying to judge how am I feeling and you don't know how to label it, you can look at your list. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to put the list on the table, put your hand over the list, close your eyes, hover your hand, hover, 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 and then point. You got an emotion? Okay. So here's the game. I like that emotion. Here's the game. I'm going to talk about yesterday. And what I want is give me about 10 seconds to start, and then I want you to yell out your emotion. If I hear 2, I'm going to pick 1. If I hear 5 and I don't know what you're saying, I'm going to do this. It means say it again. And every time you give me emotion, give me 5 seconds in between emotions. Don't just batter me with emotions. I'm going to show you how easy it is to shift into feeling. It's not a thought, it's a feeling. And I'm going to talk about yesterday. I'm going to shift my emotion. If it doesn't match what happened, I may make it up and lie to you. It doesn't matter what I say. I'm just demonstrating how to shift. This is what you're going to do in a minute, and you're only going to do it for 1 minute, so don't worry about it. Okay, so yesterday, flight left at 6:30, so we had to get up, fairly early, which is a normal thing that we do in Arizona, because when it gets hot, waking up at 4 is not a big deal. But I got up and my computer didn't work. And I really had planned that I was going to get up and quickly do my email. And so it's so hard because it broke my routine. And so then I had to go use my phone, but try to figure out what was blocking. No, I can't do that. But I knew I had to just let it go. Because I had to go get ready because I was going to miss my plane. And so, just be at peace with letting go and not connecting with the people who are trying to reach me from all over the world. Boy, give me a good one, will you? Like a happy one? Silly. So one of the best ways that I know is just to make fun of all of this. It's like I'm letting this stupid computer run my life, so how crazy is that? So I went and I played with the cat instead. That made me happy. And so then
encourage, acceptance,
amused. Oh, I got hot water right away in the shower. Yay, yippee! Sometimes it takes a long time. So I got ready really quickly. We got in the car. We headed to the airport. I got there with plenty of time, and I thought it was going to be crowded, but it wasn't. And that made me delighted. Okay, so that's the game. So so here's the instructions. You're going to be with one partner. One person, I want you to talk about yesterday. Don't make this a story. If you make it a story, you're going to say, well, but that didn't happen. I don't care if it happened or not. Okay? I just want you to talk about yesterday. My computer didn't break down. I made it up. Okay? But you said to me frustrated and devastated and whatever, and I thought, as soon as I felt that, what devastates me and frustrates me more than my computer? I felt it. So when your partner gives you emotion, so the other person is going to, every 5 seconds, give you a different emotion. Bounce around. Don't just give them difficult emotions. Give them a few happy ones. And your goal is to not think. Try to recall what it feels like and quickly shift to feeling the emotion. I want you to see how quick you can shift if you want to. Okay? If you want to, you can shift. You got it? Okay, is there any odd people in the room who don't have a partner? Okay, raise your hand if you don't have a partner. Quickly look around and get yourself a partner. Okay, quickly move around, get yourself a partner. Okay, be sure you're playing. Play. Okay, stop. Okay, stay with your partner. Okay, but could you do it? Sure you can. No? Well, there are some emotions that are difficult, right? Okay, so I want you to pay attention. This is really important. Some emotions may be difficult for you, and you say, oh, I don't know, but my question to you would be, is it that you haven't felt in a long time or that you judge that emotion? And be careful if you judge it as being a bad emotion, because then you're not going to allow people to feel it. So I was playing this once, and this woman said, I can't do shy. And I said, okay, I understand. I said, but what do you think about shy people? And she said, well, I don't think anyone should be shy. So be careful about your judgments. Is it really that you don't know what it feels like? Most of these, especially when English is your first language, most of these you've probably experienced at some point. And even when I play this all over the world, and there's only a few that don't make sense, that they're kind of slangy. But I don't have a lot of time right now to ask you about it, but think about it. Which emotions were difficult? Which emotions were difficult? We do have the capacity to shift if we want to. But I'm going to change. I want you to, you're going to change now and give the other person a chance, but I'm going to change the rules slightly because I can. I love control. I love this quote by Viktor Frankl: when we're no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. And what that means is our emotions. That's what he did. In weathering the concentration camps, he kept up his hope. And what he would do when he got out and how he would help other people with what he'd learned. He kept that vision alive. That's why vision is so inspiring. So this time, person talking, you're not going to talk about what happened yesterday. I want you to talk about a difficult situation you're facing. People giving emotions, you're going to start at the top, the more difficult emotions, but you're then going to move down. Remember, you only have 1 minute, so move down fairly quickly. Don't get stuck on the top. I want you to see how well you can shift, even when you're talking about something that irritates you, frustrates you, doesn't make you happy. Okay, let's see if you can do that in a game. All right? Got it? Okay, go. Okay, stop. It's good to see some of you laughing. Okay, so was it more difficult? Yes? Maybe sometimes yes, sometimes no. sometimes we get really stuck in what we're feeling. That's the hard point. And if you can shift your emotion around the situation, you're more apt to see possibilities. That's truly what resilience is. If I can shift my emotions, then it opens up what else is possible, what else I can do, what else, what other options there are for me. When I'm emotionally stuck, it's very difficult to see possibilities. So can you play the game? Can you play the game with yourself? Can you stop? And as I said, you've got about 6 seconds if you can, but if you don't do it in 6 seconds, you can still do it. But you have to acknowledge, I'm stuck. What is it I really am triggered by here? And what is it that I need to do about this? Or, do I have to let it go? So you can ask yourself the questions, but it's easier if you shift your emotional state first than if you try to do this while you're still stuck in your emotions. And sometimes you just choose, sometimes I'm mad and I choose to be mad. I'm going to be mad for another day. Okay, fine. But make it your choice. Make it your choice. Sometimes I'm sad. I remember the one time I was having a very difficult time applying myself and doing my work, and I just didn't feel like doing anything, and I called my coach. And she said to me, is there anything you expected to happen now that didn't? And a memory popped in my mind as soon as she said that. A year before, I had committed to putting all my energy into promoting, not my last book, but the book before, and it was written for high-achieving women. And I thought, I'll just work for women and do all this, and I had this vision of what I wanted to create. But it was right after the economy went downhill, and I couldn't get the work that I thought I was hoping to get, and so the success I thought I was going to have with the book didn't happen, and I had to go back to doing my other stuff, which I love, but it was a disappointment, and I didn't realize I was grieving. I was grieving the loss of a dream. And as soon as she said that, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And what happened, what I had hoped to happen didn't happen. I need to grieve this for a day or two, thanks. And then I allowed myself to be sad, and once I did that, I could move through it. So a lot of times when you have change in an organization, sometimes you've got to give people a little bit of space. They are grieving the loss of their project, their hope, their dream, their friends. That's okay. That's okay. We help them to understand, and we understand ourselves, and give people the space to experience whatever it is, and don't make it wrong. Don't make it wrong. To shift, when I said detach, if you're really stuck, so relax, detach, center, focus, this is great to do in the moment. If you find you're stuck and having a really hard time, then you need to go back and do the work. What did I think was taken away from me? What did I expect to happen that I didn't get? That's making me upset, frustrated, sad, or whatever else you're feeling in the moment. So I understand it. And then I can say, what is it that I need in this moment? Do I need to ask for what I need, or is it something I just really need to let go of right now? So the detaching work you might have to go off and do on the side to think it through. And again, it's really helpful when you have a buddy, a coach, somebody that you trust to do this with, so you can comfortably explore it. But even when I'm with someone I don't know that well, just asking them the question, so what is it that you thought? I think I have some questions. What is it that you really need in this situation? Is there something that I can do or that you can get? Just asking the question. And sometimes they'll give you a goofy answer like, well, they need to do this. And it's like, okay, I know that would be nice, and that's not going to happen. What else? Can you get the need met? What is the request that you'd like to make right now? So you can ask these questions. Would it be best to let it go? What would it take? Would you be willing to do that? Would you be willing to do that? So sometimes it's okay to ask these questions to help them process through it. They're questions you can ask yourself, questions you can ask each other. to really look at, why am I stuck emotionally in this? What is it that I demand to get here I'm not getting? That maybe you can, maybe you can't. Keith, when I said about fairness being a tough one, that I know it's important and it's great that you stand for people to have equality, to have fairness in life, and it's a great thing. It's like when we choose to be activism. It's often things that we want to see changed, and some of those things aren't going to change in our lifetime. But you keep the fight up because it's important to do that, but just know that some of the things, that's going to break your heart at times. And so we just accept, that is. So sometimes we keep fighting, sometimes we let go. So what I'd like you to quickly do, because I know we're not going to have time at the end, if you would just write down quick 2 things. I'm just going to give you 30 seconds before we go into the last part of this. What are 2 things that you wanted to begin doing to master your emotions? You've got to make a commitment to this. And we are going to give you an assignment, but based on what you learn, what 2 things do you want to remember to do? And I don't know, I don't think I have a spot for this. Just write it. You can write it on the last page, or just, you can write it on the last page. But since I want to control the ending, bless you. It's interesting. Somebody, I think it was in China, she said, do you say that because you're trying to make evil spirits go away? And I said, no, I think we're blessing good health on people. But it really is a cultural thing, the bless you, but we do it out of habit. It's funny. Evil spirits. Okay, so moving into the last part of this, you will get an assignment. Keith will send it to you, where it's going to have, an explanation. It'll have the list of emotions and just a log for you to start logging what it is I'm feeling and maybe why. So, and again, you want to create something, that's one of the things I like my little watch, because my calendar vibrates on my arm and says, stop it, get up, stand up. Something that will remind you, just stop, just a moment, step back, what am I feeling and why? And just create that. And again, what's so amazing is that they have seen that when people practice this, it does increase your capacity for empathy on a natural basis. So we're already moving into that, even though we don't have time to really look at how do you use this in conversation. But I do want to look at how do you set up a conversation to make sure that you create that safe space. So in the last part of this, I just want to share a couple things about understanding and working with other people, of being able to create that sense of it's okay for me to talk to you about these things, and then you can learn other skills in having the conversation. But remember that it begins with you. It's the emotion that you bring into the conversation. So when they say model the way, you have to model the feelings that you want them to feel. And they may not be feeling this. They may be scared. They may be frustrated. That's okay. You got to hold that space of hope, calm, determination, possibility. And then you can seek to discover what it is that they're not getting. This one woman was saying, we had to move my whole team into a new building, and everybody's complaining about the parking spaces. They're losing their parking spaces. And she was so angry about that. And I said to her, what is it you think that they're afraid of losing, really? And when we got into the conversation, of course, there's a lot of things they're afraid of. They're going in, having to work with new people. You know, the projects might change, the people will pay. There's all kinds of things. The parking space was just a symptom. So the complaint you hear is just a symptom. You've got to dig. What is it really? What is it really? Because they don't know. Most of the time they don't know, and you need to help them out a little bit. So it's the same thing. Be alert to their reactions. What are they feeling in the moment? What is it that they think that they're missing? And then you can ask them, you know, what is it that they need? You know, and what is it that they're willing to do? And when would they be willing to do that in order to move forward? Again, we don't push people too quickly, but we help them to understand what they need and what they can do to help get that need met. So we explore the root of the issue, not the surface. If you get caught up in their complaints, you're going to go nowhere. You're going to end up just chasing them around the block. So what is this really going on here that's causing them to feel this way? You identify their triggers, but you seek to find the solutions together. What is it that they need, really? What is it they think they're not getting? Is it possible to get it met or not? But help them to talk about that. So the three things that, the thing that I want to leave you with is that when you go into any conversation, again, as a leader, you set the emotional tone, and so it's important to know what your emotion you're bringing in. But there's two other things that I want you to consider when you go into these conversations. The first one, it's really important. Oftentimes as a leader, you go into a conversation because you want someone to change. And they don't think you're there for them. They think you're there for you or the organization. And you might be. But you really, that what's in it for me is really important. You've got to really tie in the change to something that they want. You know, so like when I work with people, you know, I want to know, you know, what is it that you want that you don't have now? Do you want to be seen more as a leader? Do you want people to give you more credibility? Do you want more peace of mind? And whatever change you want for them, you've also got to tie it into their desire. They need to know that you're there for them as well. Otherwise, they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to talk to you. They're going to resist you. They're not going to be in the conversation. It's like, yeah, well, that's what you want, but what about me? You know, and whether that's a good or bad thing, it doesn't really matter. It just is. So when you say to someone, like let's say somebody was, you know, disruptive in a meeting, you know, you might say, you know, yesterday in the meeting you kept interrupting people, and as a result, people kind of shut down and they weren't giving ideas. Okay, so you give them feedback. But then you need to tie it into, I know how important it is for everyone to see you as a leader and to recognize your contribution. You know, you're not getting that right now. Could we explore ways that they might see you as a leader and would recognize your contribution, that there may be some other things you could do that would get your need met? You know, so you look for what is their needs, what is their goals, and try to tie it into that. So don't just give them feedback and tell them to change. You've got to tie it into something they want. And if you don't know, please ask them. And please don't make the assumption that you think you know everybody, because you don't. You know, I inherited a department in my last job, and all three of the women that started working for me, when I asked them, well, so what is it you want for your career? What's your vision? How can I help you? All three of them wanted something different. You know, and it's like, oh, okay, well, let's work on that. So I wouldn't know until I ask. So we look at the intention. Whose goal is it? You set your emotional tone. And the last one is respect. And I know that's one of your values. And it's really important. And sometimes when we go into conversations and we're really upset with someone, we're disappointed with them, they maybe made promises they're not keeping. We're frustrated because we know that they can do better than they're doing now. You have to shift and go in with hope, with possibility that you believe in their potential. So can you believe in this person? That's what respect is. It may not just be that you respect what they do, but you respect what they're capable of. So when you go into the conversation, you have to ask, can I feel respect for this person? Can I honor the journey that they're on and that they're struggling, that they're probably doing the best they can. They've kind of lost their way. Can I be in that space? If not, if you don't hold that, they know if you don't believe in them, and they know when you do. And that can make all the difference, is the belief you have. And if you can't, please say so. Say, you know what, I do know you can do this, and I'm really frustrated right now because you've made like a series of promises that you've not upheld. So please understand that's my frustration. And I really want to support you on this and helping you achieve your goals. Would you be willing, and that's the question, would you be willing to have this conversation with me to see, what's getting in the way of you achieving this goal? So let them know if you're struggling with this, but you want to be feeling this belief in them. You don't have to admire someone to hold them in high regard. Can I believe in them? What is their potential that maybe they don't realize that they're getting in their own way? What are they capable of achieving? What's it going to take for you to hold them in high regard during the conversation? Couldn't you hold this for at least 5 minutes? It really is critical. That creates that psychological safety, that you're there to help them achieve something and yourself in the organization, but that they know you're also there for them, that you set your emotional tone and you hold them, with some respect in what they're capable of achieving, even if they're not showing it right now. If you go in with that, you create this, what I call safety bubble, that they will be more willing to talk with you and work this out. It's possible. And there's always a possibility they won't, but this is what you're trying to set up. You want to be careful during the conversation. You don't slip and declare that they're wrong and they're bad and all that, because their brains will shut down. Nobody wants to be made wrong or feel stupid. And don't get entangled in their reactions, so really watch that. So there's one last thing I want to leave you with before we close. I would say this is probably the most important lesson that I ever learned in my life. So I told you that my last company, that we had factories in Taiwan and Thailand, and I spent a lot of time in Asia, and I always end up there. So yes, I just came back from a month in Asia. And what I love is learning philosophy. There are different philosophies. And when I was in Taiwan, I learned this. In the beginner's mind, there's many possibilities. In the expert, there are few. If you already know the answer, if you already know how someone's going to react, you will get that. Can you open up and say, today will be the day that they're going to be different? Maybe, maybe. I believe that it's possible. Can you open up, to that possibility? That's what we're looking at. So I learned this, but like many things, this is why I asked you to write down what you're going to do, because like many things, I learn it, and then by the time I got home, I'm like, oh, forget, and I don't know what I was going to do with this, but I didn't practice it. And then finally, one of the trainers from Taiwan came to Phoenix. Now, I want you to consider this woman had never been out of Kaohsiung, Taiwan in her life, and she came to Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, Phoenix is a fairly new city. Arizona was the last state in the continental U.S. We've just been a state since 1912, not that long. Buildings are new, everything's really new. And so for her, she got to Phoenix and was like, whoa, and she was so excited. And, and I thought, wow, what I see every day, I was born there. For me, when I first went to a city that wasn't new, it was like weird. Wow, old buildings. This is strange. So but I got to practice with her, and so I took her to all these places, and she was all excited. Like streets, really wide streets that weren't full of all kinds of strange vehicles. I don't know what they call tuk-tuks, and and a whole family on a scooter, and. I took her to a cowboy restaurant. She ordered ribs thinking she'd get little Chinese, and whoa. They put the bib on her, you know. She went around taking pictures of everyone with their big old ribs. I took her to my home, and at the time I was living on a golf course. You know, we have lots of golf courses in Phoenix. And it was the middle of December. So in the middle of December, there's a lot of things that show up in Phoenix, Arizona. We have different kinds of birds. We have snowbirds, which are human beings, that tend to drive their RVs about 5 miles an hour down the road. They're in my way, and I do that little driving thing, get out of the way. You know? So a lot of people winter in Phoenix, and we also have a lot of birds and ducks that show up and decide, wow, great weather, think we'll stay here. So the golf courses tend to fill up with ducks. Okay, so I was taking her to my home, and we're driving down the street, and we went by one of the lakes, and she looks over at the lake, and she goes, oh, look at all the ducks. In Taiwan, that would be free duck. I said, you know, we don't eat those duckies. In fact, if you look on the street, yeah, thank you. We have signs that say when the ducks cross the road, you better stop your car. They have right-of-way in Phoenix. You know, but I thought, well, that's interesting. She sees it at dinner. I see them as cute duckies. You know, different way to see the world. And so we really were comparing. You know, it got to be really, you know, really interesting and like different things. And it was fun, but Friday came around and it was dark by the time I was trying to get her to her hotel. And I was tired of the game, and I'm trying to drive, and all those snowbirds are driving their RVs 5 miles an hour. And I'm like, get off the road, you know. And all of a sudden she starts screaming. I look over at her, and she's not like scared, she's all excited. She's looking out the window. Now, what do you think she was looking at? Ducks. No, cactus. You know, it's interesting, they have cactus there in the southern part. So it's dark outside, it's the middle of December, and if you say snow, you're wrong. I would be screaming if it was snowing in Phoenix. Huh? Christmas lights, who said that? You get a brain? Okay, let's see how far I can go. Woo! Oh, no! Will somebody get her brain? Yay, thank you. That was my fast pitch, it didn't work. So I took her to the street. You know what, in Taiwan, they don't hang Christmas lights like we do. I mean, I think we're the only ones in the world that do this thing. You know? I mean, the millions, gazillions, and we have competitions of who can put up the most lights and the animated Santa Clauses and all that kind of stuff. She'd never seen this. This was like amazing to her. This was the first time I had taken her out at night. And so I took her to one of those blocks where the whole block was all lit up, you know, with, yeah, the competition went all the way down the street. And she was so excited, and she went out and she was taking pictures, and I thought, what would it be like? What would it be like to see Christmas lights for the first time? You know, and I don't know that I could see them for the first time, but you know how little kids, they see things and they get so excited, and we don't care anymore. You know, that whole like, that wow. And so I could look at the lights and go, wow, wow. I could see the colors and the flashing, and I could shift into wow. And I said, this feels good. And I want to see if I can do this. So I spent the whole week looking at things, at glasses, at, apple cores. And my car, I found a few dents in my car I hadn't seen before. But it's interesting, you know, when you look at things as if you've never seen them before, what you might see. And I found I could do this with things, with situations, with people that I liked. But it was still really hard with people that I didn't particularly like, and we all have them, or irritating to me. So I found an opportunity to practice with my cousin Stuart. Stuart grew up in Cleveland. I grew up in Phoenix, so I didn't have to interact with him a whole lot. Stuart had a way of talking. He talked really slow and took forever to get to the point. And I, have a little bit more quicker energy. So my impatience always kind of showed up. But then Stuart grew up and he took a job with Tandy Corporation, and he ended up running a factory in Douglas, Arizona. Now, Douglas is still a good 4 hours from Phoenix. It's right on the border of Mexico. And so, he kept inviting me down there. I never found the time. I'm traveling. I just don't have time. He met a woman in Mexico. They got married. He had 3 children. I, just kind of never got down there. One day I get a phone call. Marcia, I got transferred to a factory just outside of Phoenix. Let's go to dinner. Turns out his family couldn't travel with him for 3 months. He was by himself, and it's my cousin. So Tuesday night, I found myself in a Chinese restaurant sitting across from Stuart. Opportunity to practice beginner's mind. And I said, I'm going to take this one step further. I'm not just going to look at him brand new. I'm going to find something amazing in Stuart. Everybody has something amazing. No matter who they are, they've accomplished something. They've overcome some difficulty. They've done something. I'm going to find it. So we're sitting across from the table, and he's talking about the factory, and they have to retool the equipment and maybe shut down for a while. I am doing my best. Finally, the waitress comes over to take the order, and Stuart looks up at her and starts to order in Chinese. I thought, well, that's really something. So I look up at her, and she's like going, huh, what, huh? I said, oh, great. But then Stuart says, oh, you must not speak Cantonese, you must speak Mandarin. And he starts to speak to her in Mandarin, and this time she goes, oh, yeah. Now, I know those are 2 very different languages. And I knew he spoke fluently Spanish with his wife. I said, Stuart, you must have taken an amazing amount of languages in college. And he says, oh, no. I run factories. I just listen to people and I pick it up. Did I not find an amazing thing about Stuart? That I never, ever, ever would have known if I had not taken that moment to say, let me get over myself, be present with this man, and find something amazing. And I said to you this was the most important lesson because I'm very lucky to have had that opportunity. Because 6 months later, Stuart was down in Mexico in a house all by himself, and there was a heater and it overturned. Yeah, he was asphyxiated. And I went to the funeral, and I didn't even know his wife and the kids because I never took the time. So many times we're too busy to take the time to do these things, the things that are important. And afterwards, in my religion, we go to the house and we tell stories to celebrate the person's life and eat a lot of food. And so I got up and I told them the story that I just told you. And they, all said, oh, yeah, that was Stuart. And then his mom, my aunt, she says, let me tell you a few more things. She said, did you know he loved music? He wrote stacks and stacks of folk songs. He wrote 3 symphonies. And he never took a music lesson in his life. She said he wrote poetry, too. He wrote lyrics for all those folk songs. And then she said, he changed his religion. I didn't really like that. But then I had an opportunity to travel with him to all these little towns around Arizona and watch him teach his philosophy of love to the children. And it's that moment that I promised her every chance I could, every time I spoke or taught a class, that I would share with you this story because honestly, to me, that's the most important thing. Can you get over yourself for just a moment to be present with this person in front of you who probably is doing the best with what they have right now. And maybe there's just something that if you believe in them, you can help them get over that and find that amazing thing that changes your perception and how you work with them, that we don't always know. We don't know how they're going to be and who they really are until we be with them. So what I learned was that give up knowing how this is going to turn out, what all the answers are, and who this person is. Be curious. So I said to you, I like to choose curiosity and compassion. And a big part of that is because I learned this lesson of beginner's mind, and believe in their potential. It's so critical that we do that for each other, and especially as leaders, to be able, to see that light that shines in the people that work for you. People want to be seen, they want to be understood, they want to know that they're valued. I always say I love the millennials because they're demanding what we had always hoped for. I never expected my leader to do this. I wanted it, but they're expecting it now. I love that. Take the moment, see me, understand me, value what I bring. That's what we do for each other. We all want that. I teach this all over the world. There's no difference in culture with what we want as human beings. So when we talk about motivation and adaptability, it really is when the full heart aligns with the active mind. And it's up to you to help create that moment. So when you talk about leadership, of really understanding what is it that people want from you? What is it that they remember? So one of the questions I often ask in my leadership classes is, do you remember what people did for you, that parent, that teacher, that friend, and how it made you feel, the person that changed your life? And oftentimes they'll say, well, in that moment, they maybe made me afraid, but then they helped me to have the courage. They may have made me angry, but then I had the determination. They may have given me hope when I didn't have any. Can you be that leader? When we look, whoops, I'll come back. Uh-oh, I'm missing some slides. Oh, well, I will tell you what's up there. When we look at leadership and what is it that we want to be remembered for. So there was that quote that I said to you from John F. Kennedy, that people will remember how you lifted their spirit. Can you be that person? Can you be the person that does that? And it's about seeing that potential, that possibility, getting over yourself, choosing your emotion, knowing what it is they want and need, helping them to get that, and believing in their potential. That's what emotional intelligence does for you. It helps you to be the leader that we all want you to be, the one that will be remembered. So I would like to hear just a couple of words. I want you to just to throw out like no more than 5, like 1 to 3 words. What really stood out for you that was really important today? So if you could just yell it out, we're not going to throw around the box. Just yell out a word or 2 or 3. What is it? Go back to your goals. What stood out for you? Huh? Breathe. Thank you. What else? Be present. What else? Shift. Yes, you can. What else? Be curious and choose. Good, that you have the ability to choose. But be curious. Be curious about yourself and be curious about others. What else? See the potential. It's there. It's there. There was an exercise I once did where they had us reach as high as we could and touch somewhere on the wall, and we put a little tape, and they said, okay, now go reach higher. And we all could. Even me, and I'm short. And then they put a tape to say, see, you can do that. You can do that. Can you do that for people? Can you do that for people? So good. All right, so you have your goals. Keith, did you want to share something with them? Okay. Okay, so could you put that back on? Thanks. If you have questions, I am on email just as much as you are, no matter where I'm at. Sometimes takes a little longer, but I'm happy to answer your questions. You can email me. There's a lot more things that you can access on my website. I have my blog, I have resources, I have information. So please visit and poke around and see what's there. You just had a taste. So I think we have 5 minutes. So if you have questions, we've got about 5 minutes that I can answer your questions. Question? Great.
Do you have some ideas you can share that other organizations have done to create a culture where people can bring their best selves to work, including
Yeah.
EQ?
It's the companies that I've known that have implemented this. Of course, there was one company that they demanded everybody be emotionally intelligent, and then they forgot their goals. You kind of have to blend it with your KPIs, but when you really look at creating what is the environment that we want to create, and one of the things I think is useful that it's not just leaders, but that you share this with everybody, because you might go and want to have a conversation and they don't know what you're talking about. So like even with coaching, I've worked with organizations where even the factory people got some basic coaching skills just so they could be coached, because then they knew what coaching was and they didn't just think you were asking questions and that was strange. So sometimes sharing some things around emotional intelligence, things that will be helpful for them. So in my last company, I was hired the day of a layoff, and the investors had told the company, you have 6 months to make a profit or we're going to shut it down. But they gave me a great big budget and say, well, you've got nothing to lose, go do whatever it is you want to do. So it was kind of like a cool thing, But the first thing we did was we gave everybody a stress management class. And the evaluations forms all said, thank you, because I didn't really know if the company cared about me. And again, we gave it to everybody. And so like giving them skills that they could take home and they could use in their life was really important. So we started with just some basic things, but also paid a lot of attention. We did a lot of reorganization around teams and created cross-functional teams. So there was a lot of diversity of thought and ideas, but we did a lot of training around, being aware of unconscious bias, how we treat each other. Did a lot of having someone there to kind of coach them through it, to help them to notice when they had conflict and how to deal with that, so they could really come together as teams and they can do this on their own. They didn't need to have somebody intervene. So it did, and changed the entire culture. Actually, in 3 years after that, we went public. We were the top IPO in 1993. So it was a huge success, but it was really based on changing how we did things and really looking what are the gaps, where are the silos, where is it that people aren't talking to each other, how can we break that up and bring people together. And so it did require all the managers work together on this. We also did a visioning process where, the top management kind of laid out an overarching vision, but then we started from the bottom and went to the factory and said, okay, so here's what we're wanting to create. What is it that you want to do in order to create this? How do you see this happening? And even if it's, to change things, what changes do you think would work? So then they would create their vision, they'd bring it to their supervisors, the supervisors then got together, they created a vision, took it to their director. So we created this co-visioning process from the bottom up and brought it back up to the top. It really engaged everybody and gave them this hope and this feeling that they were significant, on top of all the work that we did together to help them communicate and know each other. But I think the greatest thing that happened was that in these cross-functional teams, like the unconscious bias, like when the engineers would not treat the factory workers as if they knew anything, yet it was the factory workers that pretty well knew how those machines ran more than the process engineers, And so when we helped them to recognize they weren't mean people, they just didn't know. Unconscious bias means unconscious, that we need to bring it to awareness. So when I say consciousness lags, reaction. Help people to understand their reaction and that they have choice. And not that they're bad, but that just, was just a habit. And what do we need to do to embrace people more? So it really is a cultural shift, which is, everybody's really got to buy in to that. But even, you as a leader with your group, what can you do to sit down and share what you've learned today? And help them to integrate it into their life and into their work. So even if the other people aren't doing it, you can do that for them. My boss used to say to me, well, your team gets along because you hired all your friends. Well, they weren't my friends. They didn't come to dinner to my house, but we all got along, and I respected them for what they brought, and I didn't think I was any better than them. So we had a different culture on my team than he had. And that was okay, because that was important to us. So that's my question to you. What can you do today for your team? Did that answer your question? Sorta. Yeah. Do we have time for one more? Or are we done? Did I talk too much? One more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you create, foster emotional intelligence when you're working so much remotely?
From what? Remotely. That's the, this interesting thing. When I first started coaching school, when I was trained to be a coach 20 years ago, I took a virtual school, and I thought, well, this is crazy. How am I going to learn to coach people over the phone? And it was amazing how much I could hear. And frankly, most of my coaching is over the phone. In the last few years, we've brought in Skype now. It's kind of weird to look at people. Because I have clients all over the world. It's amazing when you say, really let's work on listening for what's going on. You ask a lot more questions. But one of the things too that I've learned in working with and I want to say global companies, but even one of the things I find amazing when people talk about Americans, I always say, which ones? Because even the people down the street are different than me. That we're real different. And so we have to be curious about who are you and what's important to you. And so when your remote teams, you really need to have opportunities, even if they don't see each other, to really get to know each other, to have them share things that are important to them. There's an exercise I love where we look at, it's from Appreciative Inquiry, where I look at a time in my life where I did something that I was really proud of, and then to write down 5 things about me, my traits, not skills and knowledge, but my traits that helped me to achieve that. So I'm courageous, I have a sense of humor, determined, those types of things. And don't be humble. Write them down, and then have the team share that. They tell the story and they share the traits, and it's amazing. They get to learn about each other and what's important to them, and it brings the team together when we get to know who we are. So do some, I call that team building, of understanding each other, and then it makes it easier when you start to ask the question, when you say, I can hear that you're a little irritated, or you disappeared, or I can hear you typing, what's up? And be curious. Don't be irritated. Be curious with, why they're engaged or not engaged, or the emotion they show. You would be amazed what you can pick up through just listening. And help your team understand that as well. But remotely, we really need to get to know each other even more than when we're together all the time. So good question, thank you. There's so much more we can do around this. There's so much more I wish I could share with you. I love this stuff. I think it's really important, and I'm so grateful that I found it. It's made such a huge difference for my life. So I truly thank you for having me here this morning and being able to share this. And please do your homework and come to the webinars ready to talk. It's going to be more of a conversation any more than I'm going to teach you. I am going to share some other things with you about some things that get in the way of change, but I want you to work on this first and then come together to talk about that. So I look forward to our next conversation. So thank you.
was just
thank
wonderful.
You. You're
Good deal.
welcome.
Good deal.
Wow, what an amazing, I thought this was an amazing day. I thought Marcia did a great job. And I'm just looking out at how many people are here. This is truly great. So this was a vision that we had a little, I would say probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2. And I'm just about to celebrate my 3rd anniversary with the DCRI. I cannot believe that, well, thank you, Beth. I can't believe how quickly the time went. But when I think about the commitment, I just wanted to say thank you to the members of our executive team. So the commitment that they have to invest in you all as a leadership team is commendable. First off, I believe in that, and that I have a passion around leadership. And I have a passion around the fact that we can all be better tomorrow and a year from now than we are today, right? So I'm always forward-looking, and I have a wonderful team, thankfully, that stands right next to me and helps me make a lot of these things come true. But our investment in training, in leadership training, why is that so important? Because we're truly trying to build the workforce of the future. And if we're going to get to the workforce of the future, we have to build the leadership that's going to carry that workforce into the future. So leaders set the emotional tone. That's what Marcia said. And I wrote that down, and I put that in a couple of things that I wanted to say to you guys. It's true, right? What do you bring when you walk into a room? Boy, that really resonated with me, that slide. I thought, wow, what is it that we bring into a room when we walk in? And more importantly, what is it that we leave behind when we walk out? There was a saying, it's very similar to the Kennedy saying, which is, people will forget the words you said, but they were not going to forget how you made them feel, right? So at the end of the day, and I think about that in leadership. So we had, there's these 5 components of emotional intelligence. And maybe there's some of you in this room that think, what in the world did this topic today, why did that resonate to the top of the list, that we thought that that would be an important thing to bring forward to this group of leaders, right? Maybe there's some of you that are questioning that. And I see it as an attachment to everything that we've been building on here together in the last several years. I think about our self-awareness and our self-regulation and our empathy, our social skills, our motivation. Those are all components of what emotional intelligence is all about and what we heard Marcia talk about. But it wraps into resilience, right? So this road to the resilience, this journey that we're on, which is a constant journey. It's continual. I don't think we'll ever get there. It's just it's a movement. It's a part of our journey as leadership. And I think about, we started talking last year about being adaptable, being agile, being in alignment, and embracing laughter. And in the last 3 events, we've tried to kind of hone in on those and why those are important. And the big thing that we just ended on here was, it's really important that as leaders, if you can take some nuggets, the point on bringing you all together is so that you will have one message of likeness as you go on and lead now the whole organization, who is mission-driven and ladders to the top, focused on our mission, right? And this initiative, which is building the workforce of the future, is laddering directly to that mission. It's all about building that. So resilient leaders practice the leadership principles. I think we heard that today all throughout what was just spoken about. So if we as leaders have the presence to model the way, the rest of the organization is going to follow behind us. If we want to be a great organization, we've got to be great leaders. And whatever tone we set, right? We set the emotional tone. They're going to come behind us. We inspire a shared vision. That's principle number 2. We enable others to act. We just got some really good tips and techniques about helping others and enabling them. We encourage the heart. I'll be the first to admit, when I saw that, I'm like, isn't that a little fluffy? Encourage the heart. What does that have to do with it? But I know myself. I want for somebody to come along and say, wow, yay, nice job, or, way to go, or pat me on the back every now and again, too. We all want that, to be recognized in some way, and to challenge the process. That's a good thing. Challenge and be better. So somebody gave I like accuracy. I want to make things better. I like new ideas, right? So living our values, it attaches what we learned today in living our values, but respect really stood out for me today. So one of our values being respect. A lot of emotional intelligence is about respect, and respect the other people, listening to people that are around you, being in tune, being aware enough that you can hear that. Integrity, excellence, innovation, teamwork, everything about what we learned today is about that. So what's next for us? I think what's next is that we need to plug back into these basics. I think we go out and we go and implement them. I think there's opportunity for us to cleave together and do these do some WebEx work together, do some self-work together, and continue to grow. Believe in your potential. Believe in the organization's potential, because this is the group that's going to carry us forward. And I think together we can do it. I think there's great things to come. I see the energy in this room. I cannot tell, have I been smiling since I've been up here? I cannot tell you how amazing it is to come in and to see all you guys every 6 months. This is the only time we all get together and we're all in the same room, and it's wonderful. Take advantage of that. We rolled out this year a wellness strategy and a resilience strategy for which we've got wonderful things baked in on how to breathe through mindfulness, how to practice stress reduction through yoga, which we're now bringing into the North Pavilion and then eventually into other places. But it's out there, so look at that on the pulse, our wellness and our resilience strategies, because there's opportunities for you to encourage and help your others that are on your team. Anyway, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here today. This has been a wonderful opportunity to see all of your smiling faces. I hope you took away from it as much as I did. I think it was wonderful. Thank you, Marcia, for being here. That's great. Keith?
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you again for those closing remarks, Nicole. Okay, just a few announcements and we'll wrap up. It's almost lunchtime. First and foremost, I want to extend my deepest appreciation and thanks to Nicole for her executive sponsorship of these Road to Resilience events, because without her and certainly without Dr. Eric Peterson's support, we wouldn't be here today. So let's give her another round of applause. Thank you. And then this event, it takes a small army to accomplish these Road to Resilience events, and I have an extraordinary team I've been working with, and I want to give special thanks to these folks as well. From communications, if you just stand for a moment, Michelle Nolan, Lena Wagner, Sandra Barham, and Kim Best, who's not here today. And then also RIV Media Support, Brent Lyon, thank you so much for videotaping this today and for your photographic work, really appreciate it. And then as well, I want to thank Organizational Learning, Bill Shannon, for your work and support. Again, wouldn't be possible without your help. And also to Jamie Pullins, who is our coordinator of our event today. And very special person, which you all, I think, are getting to know, is Brianna Krucky, who's our Organizational Resilience Coordinator. In fact, she just started on Monday full-time with us, so she's been working as a contractor. She's done a lot of work, and really appreciate everything. Just a couple more things. As Nicole mentioned, we've got more health, wellness, and resilience work in play right now, and just keep a lookout. You're going to see more information announcements, around meditation and mindfulness and things that have to do with resilience. So more to come. And please feel free to access and tell others about that, because that'll make us stronger in terms of the work that we're doing. Also want to mention in your folders today is an organizational learning curriculum, a copy of it. So the remaining courses that we have this year are here. Please take a look at it when you have a moment and share it out. And there'll be a digital survey that's coming your way. It's going to be released tomorrow. So please make sure you take a few minutes to complete it. It's a short survey, and your feedback is very important to us and certainly to me. And this is how we're able to plan these future events. So take a few minutes to complete that tomorrow. As Marcia has mentioned, and as we've implied, we're also going to be having some WebEx workshops in August. The dates are August the 28th, which is a Monday. That'll be from 2 to 3, and also Wednesday, August the 30th from 11 a.m. to noon. You'll see a follow-up communication that will provide more information and details about the pre-assignment work, as well as how you go to register for the event. So that's coming as well. And for those folks who weren't able to attend today, we're also going to provide the video recording of this event so they can access at their leisure as well. So we'd like them to participate too if they're available. And then lastly, before I release to your lunch, we're going to also be giving out a gift to everyone. We have an Outsmart Your Brain book that's coming, the second edition that Marsh is releasing. It comes out later this month. We should have it here in July. So everybody that has attended this conference today will receive a copy, and those who participate in the WebEx that maybe weren't able to come today will also receive a copy of that book, and we'll work with you to get those to you. And then lastly, it's lunchtime. So what we're going to do is we're going to exit at these two areas. If you're on this side of the room, the open door there. If you're towards the back and that's closer, more convenient, please exit to that rear area. And again, thank you all for attending today. It's a great day. Thank you.